Good morning and welcome to the Mayor's Weekly. I apologize for missing last week. We had some technical difficulties. Those things happen, unavoidable, and we couldn't get our production in place. But the things we had on tap for last week are on tap for today, and that is our police chief, Chief J.C. Poe, is joining me this morning. Chief Poe, glad to have you.
Good morning, Mayor.
With me, and talk a little bit about our police department and the magnitude of the operation of this city. This city has over 200 employees, a budget that's marked at $29 million. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't hit $30 million this year. And if you start looking around our city and our county for an operation that has over 200 employees and a budget of that size, it's going to be very, very hard to find. And a big piece of any municipality's budget is public safety in our police department, and I'm extremely proud of our police department. Just a few years ago, it seemed like every few months you'd read an article of somebody, I don't know, frivolous or not, but it would say that the research says Jasper's a dangerous place to live. You don't see that anymore, Chief, and
no.
I know that something bad could be happening right now. We don't, we can't control that, but what we can do and what we do is we train, we prepare. Our police department is supported financially to thwart those kind of things, and we won't bat 1,000%. Nobody does, but extremely proud of our police department. And I asked Chief Poe if he'd come today and talk a little bit about his department, how many employees he has, his budget. He's got a number of exciting things going on in the way of equipment and upgrades at the department. So, Chief, tell us about it.
All right. Our department is has the bulk of the employees with the city of Jasper. I've got about 76 full-time employees. I've got 4 part-time, and I've got 7 reserve officers. Our budget is $4.7 million total for our department annually. $4.2 million of that is for the police department itself. About $500,000 is designated for operation of our city jail. We have calls for service for the city of Jasper this last year. This is from February to February. We ran these numbers for the last 12 months. Ran 37,010 calls for service. That's calls that come through our dispatch, either through 911 or just somebody calling straight into it, needing something from the police department. And that's quite many calls. Incident and offense reports, we took 3,267 of those. Misdemeanor arrest, we had 2,472. We had 568 felony arrest. We had 227 drug-related arrests. We had 694 traffic accidents that we worked here in the city of Jasper. This doesn't count the accidents that happens in parking lots. We wrote 5,698 traffic citations, which that sounds like a lot, but for our city, size of our city, it's really not, Mayor. We have our population is about 4,300 for the last census, somewhere in that neighborhood. But we did a traffic study a couple of years ago. On any given day, cars that pass through the intersections of Walmart there and also down at Walston Bridge Road and Airport Road, they run about 30,000 vehicles go through there in any single day. And we have a lot of people that live outside of Jasper that come to Jasper to shop and have business here or work here. And that's quite a few, and it's really taxing on the public safety, particularly with the police department and your fire department running medical calls and things of that nature. But we've got a lot of good police officers, and we've got 3 female officers now that I'm very proud of, and they're doing an outstanding job. We have 10 of our officers are designated to our investigation division, which that includes narcotics. And our crime stats that the mayor made mention too, that is, if you pulled it up on the internet, you would see that and it would look bad. They had us ranked up there, but a lot of that is how it is tabulated with the reporting of that nature and closing out cases. And we're in the process of correcting a lot of that on that side, but as far as actual violent crimes, we don't have that many of them compared to other cities our size. And when we do have them, we have the investigative unit that does a great job in solving these crimes and getting that reported. We have, the city has gotten some of the COVID rescue money, and some of that has been designated for the police department. They have recently renovated our training room, which it's also used as the emergency operations center if we have a disaster here in the city of Jasper. And that's been renovated, and we should be finished with that shortly. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $60-something thousand has been designated doing this, putting up smart boards and things of that nature, and just totally redoing the room. Also, the City Council and Mayor have approved a body scanner for our jail, and this will enable us to check temperatures of people coming in into our jail, and also it'll check if they have anything hidden in a body cavity, things of that nature, and it makes searching inmates a lot better. And this is also purchased from the COVID rescue money. They're in the process of approving two additional and new dispatch consoles for our dispatch room communications. This is going to be around $94,000 for these two new consoles. And the ones we have are very old, and they're beginning to where it's a safety issue for our officers. We've got a lot of technical issues with them, and so hopefully we'll have these approved at the next council meeting, and we'll get those ordered and taken care of and replaced.
Well, Chief, you've been in law enforcement a long time, and we've come a long way in the sophistication of equipment, haven't we?
We sure have. Yes.
Hey.
We have, in the last several years, we have replaced a lot of our vehicles that were worn and outdated. Our detective office, when I came on board about 7 years ago, we didn't have a detective unit that was newer than 10 years old. They were old and wore out. We've almost got all of those replaced now, and we're in the process. We've got one ordered to replace the last one that's old, and we're having problems getting it in because of availability, but it should be on the way. We do a lot of training with the police department. We spend a lot of dollars on training, and that is to make our officers, it's safer for them to be able to handle their job, and it's better for the public that they know how to conduct themselves and train and be able to do their job a lot better and safer.
Chief, you're sharing with me some good news about a case. It looks like that's been out there for a while. It may be about to be resolved, and what's bringing our resolving this case is DNA. We read a lot about DNA today and nationwide how crimes are solved. How do we access that, use that? I don't talk about this case or whatever, but I don't know. How does that work? How does that help us?
Well, DNA can be gathered in several ways. Typically, it's gathered off an item that somebody has left, or at a crime scene, something of that nature that normally belong there, then that they wouldn't have access to that area that it's found. And then we compare it to databases of DNA, things of that nature, or we cultivate a suspect, and then we get their permission or get a court order to gather DNA from them and compare it.
Now, do you have a lab that you send that helps you with that, or are we able to do things internally?
With the DNA, we can do the processing and the gathering of it from the item, the suspect item, ourselves. We have ways of doing that. With our evidence technician, he's is very good, and we send him to schools all the time. And then we send that sample off to a state lab, or if they can't do it or they're backlogged, we can send it to a private lab and have it done.
Chief, let's talk just a little bit about competency of our staff and our officers. Just a couple of weeks ago, you invited me out to our firing range as our officers were qualifying, and they have to do that ever so often. But from what I can see at a rather long distance, we do a great job in ensuring the competency of our officers and the way of training and that sort of thing. Could you touch on that just a little bit?
Yes, sir. We spend a lot of our training dollars on firearms training, and that's what the mayor was alluding to. We invited him to come out while our CERT team, that's our critical incident response team, was doing some of their training. They have to train periodically and qualify at a certain rate, a certain score with their handguns and rifles to remain on the team. And we also, with our regular officers, we have to qualify twice a year to be able to remain a police officer, a certified police officer for the state of Alabama. You have to shoot a certain score. And we spend a lot of time with that and go above board in doing more training than what we actually are required to do. And we're required to do 12 hours of continuing educational training for our regular police officers. That's annually, but we go above that, and we do like use of force training, sexual harassment training, things of that nature, how to de-escalate situations. It's just a gamut of different training that we do. And we send several of our people to instructor schools at time, then they can come back and train our officers. That saves us money, and they get the same type of training.
I can say this, it was an enjoyable trip out to the range, and being a long-term sporting arms enthusiast, I'm probably qualified to make observations on our officers and their performance out on qualifying day, and I can tell you we have some highly skilled police officers that creates a sense of comfort in my mind in this city to have those kind of folks working for us every day, and certainly qualified to deal with whatever comes their way. Not only qualified, but we willing to step into harm's way and do whatever that needs to be done to protect Jasper. So, police departments draw a lot of criticism, defund the police departments. Never been an advocate of that, and never will be an advocate of that. And as long as I'm mayor of this city, I'm going to put my best foot forward to see that we have the best police department we can have, because it's critically important for the people that live in this city. It's critically important if we want to grow our city, and something that's looked at, Chief, when I deal with folks that are looking to locate here. I had a lunch yesterday with some folks from a foreign country, and they look at those things. They're looking at Jasper, and so I thank you and your leadership team for the great job you do. I thank our men and women on the ground. This thing of running a jail is not a sideline. That's a tough job, and people find themselves in risky positions, and false allegations are made and whatever, and it's tough. And finding people that can do the work and whatever, it keeps the chief busy making sure we're adequately staffed. But if I were grading our police department today, I'd have to give them an A+. Chief, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And so thank you for being with us today. Send us your questions, and we'll be happy to answer them, and we'll look forward to being with you next week.